Hi, you're listening to Engagement Drivers, presented by EveryoneSocial. Each week, we'll share actionable tips, strategies, and success stories that you and your teams can use to steer your brand, social, and employee engagement in the right direction.
Hey everyone, Todd here, Director of Marketing over at EveryoneSocial. I hope you all are enjoying Employee Advocacy Week, our online event that is for 5 days. Very excited about today's session here with Emily and Dan of Sweetfish Media. We're going to be talking about how to build a social evangelist program for your employees. Now, social evangelist might be a new term for anybody out there, but it's pretty similar to employee advocacy, employee influencer, social seller. You've probably heard these terms before. So Dan and Emily, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me here.
Awesome. So before we get started, would love for both of you just to introduce yourselves a little bit about what you do at Sweetfish Media, maybe your background in social media or marketing or anything like that.
Okay. So I am the social media specialist at Sweetfish. And I've been doing that for about 3 months now. I was doing some contract work for Sweetfish as a writer. And so my background is mostly in publishing and marketing. But Dan brought me on the marketing team to build out this program to kind of take charge in figuring it out and growing it. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been really cool. So
awesome.
And I'm Dan Sanchez. I'm Director of Audience Growth at Sweetfish. And I get to do a variety of different things, one of which is spending a ton of time on LinkedIn, just posting, interacting with people, but I also help produce podcasts by walking customers through podcasting, as well as producing our own podcast at Sweetfish Media called B2B Growth.
Awesome. Yeah. And B2B Growth is one of my favorite podcasts. I listed as one of my favorite marketing ones. So everyone should definitely check that out. I was also a guest on there about 3 years ago with Logan. So it's always cool to go back and see some of those episodes. But yeah, thanks for the background, everybody. Again, thank you for being here. We're very excited. I'm sure our audience is going to learn a lot from both of you. Before we get into it, I just wanted to kind of go into to briefly describe, for both of you, what you view a social evangelist as. So I think, there's probably some similarities between your definitions, but we'd love to hear from each of you kind of how you define a social evangelist today.
Yeah, I think of it as, like you said earlier, like an influencer, a brand advocate. We don't really like to use that terminology. I think the one that we go with mainly is like a subject matter expert, because that's what they are. I mean, they're experts in their roles and in their niche. And so to us, it's an evangelist is someone who is building their own personal brand. And we want to come and support them in that. And they're also we ask that they have a byline that points back to the company. And so that's the dual purpose of it, is that evangelists are, they're really just putting out what they know and what they're passionate about, and that we get to be a part of it as a company.
That's awesome. Dan?
It's funny to look at the word a social evangelist kind of reminds me of like what a brand evangelist was like a while ago. Maybe that's been a thing for a couple of decades now. But back then, like, to be an ambassador for a company or an evangelist was evangelizing their way of thinking, their products, their services, kind of like Guy Kowalski was for Google for a long time, right? And he's been for many companies. They usually have a following of some kind. They speak on stage, they write books. Now, a social evangelist is someone who's primarily doing those same things and promoting the company, their way of thinking, the problem they solve, all that kind of stuff, but doing it primarily via social media, because we live in a very digital age now where a lot of life is played out here. Maybe not writing books, maybe not speaking on stage, but maybe they're doing those things too. But primarily it's a social media thing. And I think the way we do it at Sweetfish is a little bit more defined still. We don't even call them social evangelists. We call them LinkedIn evangelists, because that's kind of like the one place we're playing. We're not across Twitter. We're not on Facebook. We're not on Instagram. It's just LinkedIn, because that's where our audience hangs out and keeps it kind of concentrated more. So and like Emily said, we don't like require them to just post about the company. We do require that they change their byline, because that kind of follows them everywhere. But otherwise, we trust that because they work for Sweetfish, most of them, some of the time, will be talking about podcasting.
Cool. No, that's awesome. And we're all about authenticity too at EveryoneSocial. I think that's the key to success of these kind of programs too, is sure, you want to get the company content out there occasionally or talk about the brand, but it's really about what you're doing, what value you're bringing, how you can educate audiences and people like that. So love those definitions. I think those make a lot of sense. So like I mentioned earlier a little bit when we were kind of talking before this, I've seen both of your content so much on LinkedIn, and even before being connected with both of you, my audience that I follow was sharing or connecting or engaging and showing up in my feed. So I think it's a testament to the things you're doing is clearly working. What intrigued you about this initiative initially? I think some people are kind of hesitant with personal brand building or sharing on social. There's still that kind of like, I don't know what to call it exactly, but just some hesitation, right? People are just maybe either afraid of putting themselves out there or even don't even know where to begin. Would love to kind of understand what intrigued both of you to get involved in this kind of social program. And then what kind of results have you seen on your professional growth and career so far with that?
Yeah. So when Dan pitched this idea to me of creating a formalized program, I was intrigued just because it's something that is pretty new. Not a lot of companies are doing this. And so it was exciting to think like, okay, we get to pave the way in this and we get to test it and learn from it and make it better. I personally also am just like, as an Enneagram type 2, that's like the helper. I was so motivated just to see how we could like equip our employees and use this as a benefit to our team. So I think those are the two things that really motivated me, inspired me, was just the fact that it was, we were getting to create something, which is exciting, and getting to support our team as well. So the impact that I've seen is, for me, I was not active on LinkedIn really before this. And so I've been able to get clear on what it is that I'm passionate about, and what it is that I want to talk about and what I want to learn about. And that's something that I continue to refine. We continue to have conversations about, but I think that's huge to contributing to your growth, right? Is learning from people in your industry who are experts, and who have gone before you and done things that you're just getting started in. So I think that's been huge. And then I also, it's kind of fun because you get to make friends. LinkedIn friends, and that's something that's just started happening recently as I've been like getting more involved and gaining more visibility and everything. It's like I've started messaging people, or people have started messaging me and just like, hey, I saw you had a post the other day about fun words and learning stuff from the thesaurus. Like, here's one I learned this week. And it's just fun conversations, but it's also like people are really approachable, I think. And so if you want to learn something, you can always reach out to someone and ask them. And that's been a huge benefit for me.
That's great.
Man, what I find intriguing about this program, it's like one of those marketing initiatives that are like super counterintuitive. Think about it, like a couple of years ago, even if you would have told me this, like, hey, you know how we're going to get the people to find out about our company? We're going to spend money promoting our employees. What? So, you're going to have them post about your company. No, we're going to let them post about what they're passionate about. You're like, excuse me? But it actually works remarkably well.
Yes.
I was kind of part of a pilot program with just the leadership team last year. Like James and Logan had kind of already had something going. They'd already been hosting B2B growth for a couple of years. I was brand new to the team. Mm-hmm. Had under 1,000 followers on LinkedIn, but I hit it aggressively. And because of the pandemic, we had to like move resources around. We had a specific product we don't even use anymore around podcasting. But we had employees hired to run this new thing. We're like, oh shoot. James was like, we got to put these people to work. We don't want to let them go. Yeah. So instead of doing what we were going to do for customers, we just did in-house and made it a LinkedIn Evangelist program. And lo and behold, I grew my own social following substantially over the last year. And it's been hugely beneficial for me. Like my career is on a different trajectory now because of it, but it's also earned a freaking diaper load of money for Sweetfish Media. Like I just looked at the revenue in HubSpot this morning, and it earned like about $500,000 in ARR, but those are 6-month contracts. So it's almost $1 million in ARR within just the last year is how much LinkedIn has generated revenue. Now that's not all just from me. Right. It's partly coming from James and Logan doing it for a couple of years now, but my involvement and now the whole team's involvement creates a lot more synergy there, because once you start interacting with one of us, it's almost like LinkedIn starts feeding you posts from Emily and from other people on our team. All of a sudden you start seeing the Sweetfish ecosystem. So it's kind of been this like funny thing. Like we end up promoting everybody's personal interest, but ends up being highly profitable for the company as well. So that's why it's intriguing. It's because it doesn't seem like it would work from the outset, but it's working incredibly well.
And that's exactly what happened too, because like I said, I was connected with James and then Logan and then you, Dan, and then Emily. We got connected right after that. And I'm starting to see other people's names from the company in there who are also part of the program, which is really cool. And that's the thing we're telling companies too, who are using our software for similar things, trying to get organized and make it a little bit easier on themselves, is that don't worry about just company content. Like, people are still going to find your brand, right? They're still going to click your employees, profiles and see who they work with. They see the byline, they're still going to recognize that. And it starts becoming this trifecta, of things happening on social. And even if they don't know that you need your software yet or your service or whatever it may be, they start thinking about your brand more often, which is, I think, the important aspect to it. And we've seen that happen with other people too. I mean, look at Chris Walker and Refine Labs, right? I mean, they're crushing it on LinkedIn as well, doing the same kind of thing, posting, providing value, and generating real business results from that. And it's a great segue too, because my next question was, what has been the impact on Sweetfish Media? I mean, of course, companies always want an impact from their employees sharing, but you also want to make sure employees are getting, some kind of, feedback. They're also getting results. But what has, besides that revenue model, which you kind of hinted at there, I would love to hear what else it might have been doing for your company as a whole.
So I have some thoughts on, in addition to like what the revenue has done, but I'd be curious to hear, Emily, like what else you've seen as a benefit.
Yeah. So I think, one thing that we talk about a lot is like being able to use this as a program that prepares people for wherever they're going to go next, which I think is really unique. I mean, because at the heart of it is like, we want to help people build their brands as well as help our company and get more leads and get more revenue and that kind of thing. But you do have to approach it from like a generous mentality, right? And so we think it would be really cool to be able to be the springboard for people to, I mean, they're not going to stay with us forever. They're going to go on to the next thing, but to be able to help them build that brand, I think is a big part of it. And then also just to like bring other people into that, the people who see the content that's posted. Like, hopefully we want to produce helpful content for people. We want to be experts in, whatever topics the evangelists are talking about, so that they can help their network and people can actually learn things. So it's kind of this ripple effect. So I think that part's really neat.
I really like that you guys are excited to like help employees kind of grow their careers too. That's something we always talk about too, that we've come across that where companies were kind of afraid, like, we don't want to lose somebody who's really good and have them build their personal brands and take it with them. But it's kind of the nature of the beast, right? And people are going to want to be a part of the program if you're willing to give back into their careers. So I think that's really important. I love that your company is doing that. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably going to lose people anyway. So
right.
Like, people are going to leave. Like, let's just be honest. Do you want them to leave with thinking of you in an endearing way because you help launch them into something new? Or do you want them to leave kind of like, oh, it's just another step in the journey, Yeah. Like Emily said, like, it's my dream that Sweetfish could become like a launching pad for all kinds of people, and hopefully it back into the company into higher positions. But, there's not always enough spots somewhere like higher up in Sweetfish. But I'm like, man, but from here, if they could launch into other higher up positions into Sweetfish or other outside and like graduate out, then that would be fantastic. That'd be a dream come true. Hopefully we're launching people into the next stage of their journey, wherever they need to go.
Yeah. And I think that's great too. It's just, I don't know, to me, if someone's investing in my career, I'm more willing to go above and beyond with my work, but also be on social, maybe talk about the company occasionally or share things that we're working on. And we're seeing that with customers too, who actually are really trusting their employees and not really giving them, hardcore guidelines. There's some social policies in place, of course, but encouraging them to be like, hey, share what you're doing. It doesn't have to be about our company. And, we want to invest in your career. And if you move on, that's great, but we'd love to keep you here as long as possible. And those seem to be the best cultures and the ones that are actually really winning on social media.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting just to even think about what the policy should be. And we're small enough that we actually don't have social media policies. Emily, we probably need to write one. But if I could put the policies in one sentence, it would be do what's in the best interest of Sweetfish Media. And that's probably the overarching policy that would keep everybody in the right place.
Yeah, we've seen so many different kinds. We've seen so many different kinds of social policies. Obviously, we have companies that are very compliant, heavy in insurance, financial services, but even that they're starting to understand the value of this too. And there's of course going to be some compliance things where they have to be kind of like certain hashtags maybe or things like that. But it's cool to see more opening up those doors and realizing like, hey, we have to be here or we're going to lose to, anybody, competitors, or we're not going to build the best culture. We're not going to hire the best people because everyone wants to be part of a company who's very trusting and allows you to be social. That's what we're seeing a lot of happening right now with the Fortune 500 companies, at least. Cool. So I know you guys have a blog post about this, and we'll definitely share this at the end for everybody to check out. I read it, definitely was very intrigued by it. Very interested in kind of you guys sharing a little bit of your framework of how you kind of made this happen, right? Because you're kind of all doing this through a manual process, which I think is really interesting. We don't need to go through every single detail. I definitely want to encourage everyone to go check out the blog post, but we'd love to hear the framework and kind of steps that you built to make this work. And maybe Dan, this might be something you're a little more familiar with, but Emily, happily to hear what you got too. Love to dive in for everybody who might be just thinking about starting something like this.
No, Emily knows it inside and out. Go ahead, Emily.
Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I know how I would answer this, but Dan has also been doing this a lot longer than me. But I would say, first of all, is figuring out your why. Like, you have to get leadership buy-in. So do you want to build brand awareness or engage your employees or generate leads? I mean, revenue is probably at the top of the list, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, you have to put a framework in place. And this is something Dan did a really great job with this. He just created like training, onboard training. So like he made videos of LinkedIn best practices and how to create content that resonates, how to engage with people, but then also getting down into the details of like who qualifies for the program, when and how do you apply, and the commitment. The commitment's an important part of it. So we ask that our evangelists are posting 3 times a week. And that they're also engaging with other people on LinkedIn. And that's not something we police closely because we want to trust our team and want to give them that autonomy and freedom. But 3 times a week is the minimum for posting. And a lot of times, people are able to come up with so much more than that, the more they flex that writing muscle. But so after we put the framework in place and offer some training, I jump on a call with them initially. So I would say like the next step would just be to create a content plan for your evangelists. And so, because I think a lot of them they just need direction, or they just need some tips on how to post because they've never done it before. So to be supported and to be equipped, I think are huge things for the evangelists. And that's more of where I lean into it, is just talking with them and fleshing out their brand, fleshing out like what they're passionate about, what they are knowledgeable about, or even just what they're learning about. Because I think a lot of times people don't feel like they are knowledgeable in anything, right? And so when you're able to lay it out and like write it out and outline it on paper, it becomes clear and you give them that confidence. So I would say that's the final step before they're launching and doing it themselves. And then we actually, after that, I write for them. And I write usually 3 posts for each evangelist, and we've got 14 right now. So that's a lot of posts
a week.
So that's a lot. But I will say too, like, I think that I don't know how it would be a lot harder if you didn't have someone doing it full time, someone focusing on it full time. So because I, am able to give them that capacity of posting more content or, training them more.
Wow, that's a lot of content.
The part that companies are hearing right now, if I was a marketing director, or when I was a marketing director a couple of years and I were taking notes, I'd probably be taking notes on the part of like, oh yeah, onboarding, oh yeah, training. And those are important elements, but by far the most important element we provide is Emily DiBrito. For her to sit down with them, help them think through what they want to be known for on LinkedIn, and then actually help them think about the topics they want to talk about, and then actually doing and lifting some of the burden of posting every day and having them post some, because she can't go off of nothing. I mean, she can, but it won't be true to them if they're not posting. And then actually post for them. They still have to get in there and engage and comment and all that kind of stuff, because you can't really replace that. Right. But that's the part that makes this program work. That's the part that makes it exciting. Like if they were to go out and outsource that, it would probably cost somewhere around $1,000 or $2,000 a month for them. Right. And we're providing that as a service to them for free, knowing that it comes back to the company, but also it's going to push out their personal brand and grow them. But that's the most important part. Everything else we do with the the timing and the commitment and the policies and all that kind of stuff is like secondary to that.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it's definitely a lot of work, and it's impressive, Emily, that you're able to connect with everyone and kind of figure out their personalities and interests and then write effectively for them to help them really succeed in social. And definitely no doubt with the training, we are very big on the training. It's kind of funny. Some people want to put this kind of program in place and just set it and forget it and hope that it works out. And it's one of those things where it's ongoing. You need to be engaging. You need to drive attention, drive awareness, keep training, make sure people understand how social really works and help them succeed. And then eventually you don't have to do as much and people just catch on really easily, which I think is exciting. Really cool to understand the framework. And I would definitely, everyone, please read the blog post, sweetfishmedia.com/evangelist-program. You can check that out. It goes into a lot more detail. But I want to be mindful of Dan and Emily's time here too. So we'll move on to the next question, but loved hearing that framework. So the other thing is, I guess, people thinking about doing this too. Of course, there's a lot of positives and really exciting things about it too, but I'm sure this goes without some challenges along the way as well. So I was wondering for you guys, what are the challenges that you've seen, with your own program or others trying to do the same thing with these kind of employee social programs? And kind of how do you fight through those challenges? So how do you keep going? Because I know a lot of times people get started, get real eager. They don't see results in 3 months and then they're like, well, I'm going to quit. But if they kept going, they could have seen something amazing like what you guys built at Sweetfish.
Some of the challenges. So I think, like I mentioned before, getting leadership buy-in, and just, I think to combat that, you would just have to have a plan, right? Have a plan written out, and then be able to show results as much as you can without having done it. But again, I came in after that. So all I knew was that the buy-in was there and I was hired. So, and then I think another thing is that, like, programs, I think, that are not working out when they're doing this is they just don't have the resources or the time. And again, that's where you would want to hire someone to come in and help with that. Because it's a lot of content to create, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time. And your evangelists already have jobs. And so this is like an extra thing that they're having to do as well, is just sit down and write when they have the time. So to be able to, give them the training to do that, and then, give them me to help write things for them is a huge help. And then I think maybe even another challenge would be even getting employee buy-in. I think that sometimes they're hesitant to jump on board because of the time and the resource constraints, right? And so, or even just the lack of confidence. I think oftentimes we see like a lack of confidence, a lack of clarity, and a lack of capacity when it comes to working with evangelists. And so if you're able to solve for those three things, if you're able to encourage them, give them that confidence, and lay out what they're passionate about, what they can talk about, so that they feel confident about their knowledge and their expertise. And then if you're able to give them capacity as well by helping them with some resources, writing memes for them, or making memes for them, writing content for them. And if you're able to do those things, then I think people will jump on board.
Dan, any challenges you've seen?
The main challenge that I run into is just getting people to stay motivated, because it's a slog. It gets old after a while. And I think there's seasons of, writing more, writing less, engaging more, engaging less. And that's why we run it in quarters. So they'd make a 3-month commitment to posting, and then they could take a break or pause or jump back in the next quarter or whatever they want to do, to try to fight that. We're about to do we need to have a meeting soon with all of them, actually, to kind of get input on how it's going so far, and even to make that better, because I know it can get pretty hard even after a month or two, every week posting and engaging every single day. I'm kind of in a rhythm with it with my life, but I remember it was hard at first.
That makes sense. I do like the employee buy-in thing too. I think a lot of people don't realize the intrinsic value that you get from this, even though it is, like you said, kind of a slog. It does take time to piece together. We've heard people who are like, well, I don't understand the value of doing this for myself, other than just, I'm helping the company be out there. So we're always encouraging companies to be like, you got to explain the value for employees too. It's not just a one-way street. There has to be, both sides have to benefit in some way. That way it makes it more exciting for everybody to get involved. So that's great to hear. So this is the question, Dan, that you said you would like to start with first. So we'll call you out on that one. What tips would you provide organizations and individuals that they're just getting started creating and sharing on social media? I mean, there's tons out there, but I think this kind of program is a little bit different. So we'd love to hear your main tips for individual or company.
My biggest tip. and it will combat the thing we just talked about getting employee buy-in. But the key leaders behind this or want to do this, and it might be in marketing, it might be the CEO, but whoever wants to do this, they have to model the behavior first and probably hit it hard for at least 6 months. I mean, like hard for 6 months, because if you can demonstrate how it's impacting you personally, then it's really easy to sell to employees. Or it's a lot easier because you can showcase it and demonstrate what it's supposed to look like, what the success can look like, and then demonstrate even to other leaders in the company, like what the value is, right? Because you can do it once. And I actually recommend doing it in like a group of 2 or 3. LinkedIn is a lot easier to go in together. If it weren't for Logan and James, like I wouldn't have grown to where I've been. It's kind of like a trampoline, right? Like if you've jumped on a trampoline and you know you have someone bigger than you come and jump right before you're about to hit and it launches you. Like if you haven't been on a trampoline, sorry, this metaphor doesn't work for you. But if someone jumps right ahead of where you're jumping right next to you, it's going to send you up twice as high. And it's the same way with LinkedIn. So if a couple of leaders can like work together to help launch each other and then kind of build up a little bit of a following before other people get in, that momentum can help all the other employees grow so much faster. Because now if James and Logan and I all go and comment on somebody's post, but they only have a few hundred followers, a few hundred connections, well, their post is going to get way more visibility because it's going to share out to all the people that follow me, follow James, follow Logan. So there's like a tactical advantage, but also just a emotional, psychological advantage in that you're just doing the thing you need to do as a leader. You're modeling what you want to have other people do.
Love that. Yeah. Lead by example.
Yeah. I mean, I would have more tips for individuals, I think, of just like, first of all, you get out what you put in. And you do have to be consistently posting, and you do have to be engaging with other people's content as well. Which I think at first sounds like a to-do, like something to check off the list. But I think the more you do it, it becomes more fun and exciting, and you want to actually engage with people. So yeah, I would say just keep putting in the work. And then I also think for individuals, like just write every day, just start, whatever ideas you have, whatever you're learning. A lot of people run into like being perfectionists about it and, rewriting. Just kick perfectionism in the face and like just write it and put it out there, and then you'll fix it the next time. So those are my 2 tips for individuals who want to get started on LinkedIn.
That's great. Yeah, I'm a big mantra person with the just start. No matter what, if you're scared or you're unsure of it, you'll figure it out if you just start. And I've done that with websites and things where I was afraid to start a website. I'm like, I don't know anything about it. Figured it out. And then eventually it got better each time as I did it. The content got better, or the way I organized things got better. So I think it's a great way to go about it. Well, cool. So I have one more question for you guys. This has been really interesting, and I know our audience is going to get a lot out of this too. So again, thank you for your time on everything here. I wanted to ask, what is the biggest lesson you've each learned from posting on social media and building your personal brands?
So like I said, I've been doing this just for a couple of months. Before this, LinkedIn was just where you put your resume. But now I'm actually like creating a better resume by creating a brand and putting content out there. And so I think maybe that's characteristic of, a lot of millennials. I'm on the tail end of that. I'm on the younger end, and they feel like LinkedIn is boring or limiting or puts you in a box or something. And I think it is such a great space to have great conversations, but also to, use your creativity. If you're great at making videos, like make some videos. If you're a designer, put your designs on there. And I think it's cool because you can talk about, people want to celebrate your successes with you. People want to learn about what you're learning about, and you create this community, you join this community really. And so I think that's been the biggest benefit for me and the thing that gets me the most excited.
Biggest lesson learned. The way to grow on LinkedIn, especially, but this is true across all social media, is to just be insanely helpful to as many people as you can. If you think about it like that and you have that perspective of just being helpful, your posts get better, all your comments are better, every engagement you have, you think, how can I best help this person? It keeps you from being mean. It keeps you from being cynical. It keeps you from being sarcastic. It keeps you from posting about stuff no one cares about, which is all the mistakes that I've certainly made on other platforms, right? It's really easy to be snarky. It's a lot harder to like be like, okay, this person posted something I don't agree with. What can I post that will be the most helpful, that's most likely to actually be received? Right? Maybe I should ask an interesting question to think about why they do what they do, or why they think what they think. How can I be helpful? If you show up with that mentality every day in every single comment, then you're going to grow. You're going to win because you've been so helpful with everybody else.
That's awesome. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, this has been great, both of you. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're all mostly active on LinkedIn, but if people want to get in touch with you elsewhere to learn about social media, personal branding, or even Sweetfish Media and podcasting, how can they get in touch with you?
I mean, I would say just on LinkedIn, honestly. But yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name's Emily DiBrito. That's DiBrito. Probably linked in the comments, but.
Yep. And you can find me at linkedin.com/in/digital marketing Dan, or my personal site, danchez.com.
Awesome. Once again, thank you both. This has been really exciting. I think everyone's going to get a lot of value out of this. Hope everyone out there is enjoying Employee Advocacy Week. Until the next session, we'll see you then. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with more engagement insights. Want to know how EveryoneSocial can provide you with the tools needed to keep everyone at your company connected, informed, creating, and sharing? Visit EveryoneSocial.com to learn more.